I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get some of my other startups over the finish line. They're mostly fairly small, early stage companies.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
Good, Lindsay, really good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling a little under the weather, so sorry for the raspy voice. If I have it, I've got some tea here in case it gets really bad. But I'm doing so good so far this morning. I had a meeting with our wedding planner. She was showing us a bunch of different beautiful venues in France. So it was a fun meeting.
Gotta love my kid wanting to go big or go home. Listen, I never once questioned from the time you were born that you are a go big or go home kind of girl. There's no question about that, right?
Right. Exactly.
So we are thrilled today. Like, I've got to say, I've been waiting for this episode for a very long time. This is our 100th episode that we are recording. I can tell you it's probably one of the best things I've ever done is starting this with you, Lindsay. So I'm super, super excited to introduce our most special guest for our 100th recording. We have Mr. Frank Santa Sentner joining us today. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carey and Lindsay. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm very honored to be the guest on your 100th show.
Yeah, we thought about this, Frank, and we said, listen, if we want to do something special for our listeners that have stuck with us for, almost all the way through 2 years, what could we do to bring them an incredible insights into the show? And honestly, your name went to the top of the list, which is amazing. I can't believe we've not interviewed you yet, to be quite honest. So I'm super, super thrilled for you to be here with us.
And it's timely. It's my time of year, so I'm looking forward to this.
It is. And for those that didn't see a video clip or aren't watching the video, Frank is dressed up in a Santa hat, and I wanted to ask you, Frank, do you do this during the season, like dress up as Santa? Do you have like a full Santa outfit?
Oh yeah, I've been doing it for 12 years. I just bought my third Santa suit. I'm happy to say that I did have to have it altered. I'm still not filling them out completely, which I'm thrilled with, and so is my wife. And it is the most joyous thing that I do. I live for this season every single year. It is such a wonderful opportunity to interact with families and with kids, and I just wish there was some way I could do with my own grandkids.
Yeah, it's funny I was going to say it.
Yeah, we went on the Essex North Pole Express this past weekend, and there was another Santa on there. Obviously, we don't want to spoil it for the younger of our granddaughters. Mm-hmm. She's 8 years old, and when he saw me, he said, "I think you're my brother." And I said, yes, we're in the International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santas. That's an actual thing, and I pay dues, and I get my insurance through them.
Wow.
Fantastic.
When I was a kid, I was scared of Santa. I was scared of like anyone who dressed up in a costume. And my grandpa dressed up in Santa, and because I could recognize his face, I wasn't scared of him. But I remember that was like really special. He dressed up for all the kids on our street and let everybody sit on his lap and hand them their list, and it was really cute and really fun. So I'm sure someday you'll find something special to do with your grandkids just like that. Sure, that's super awesome.
So funny. Lindsay actually recognized, or at least, felt comfort in his face. But Morgan, on the other hand, screamed bloody murder and wouldn't look at him. And it was actually kind of funny because it's one of her It was honestly one of her favorite people on the planet, but she was terrified of him, which is kind of funny. So anyway, there are some of my favorite memories. I love that my dad did that, and I love that you do it too, Frank. So I honestly think you're a really big gift to our industry. I know that our industry is inundated with all kinds of new technology. And for the average agent, I often think the first thing they get a ton of calls about are you selling? I want you to sell. Like, are you thinking about selling or whenever? And the second in their inbox and maybe their phone calls or solicitation is, would you like to use this technology? And it is a crowded and noisy space. But I think you have a mind where you've been able to look at our industry and help many different technology companies either make it or navigate their way through this. So for the people not listening who don't know who you are, can you just give a little bit of a background, how you've been involved? And then I'd like to dive in and do some rapid fire questions about technology, if you don't mind.
No problem. In December, I'm beginning my 48th year in the insurance technology space, all of it focused on working either with independent insurance agents on their technology or working with insurance carriers to integrate to the agent's technology. I worked for a company back in the 70s, if you can remember, that was a long time ago, and helped to build their first policy and claims system. It was based on Accord forms. Then I left and thought I was smart enough to create my own company and built a platform using the Accord AL3 data standard, which is what's used to do over 800,000 downloads of policy records every single day. And that system ultimately was acquired by Vertafore. They renamed it Sagita, and they acquired it. I started building it in 86. They acquired it in 95. And it is still running some of the largest insurance brokers in the world. Marsh MMA, what used to be BB&T, now Truist, USI, and lots of other smaller but still very large agencies. And I believe that's a testament more to the intransigence of our industry than it is to any brilliance on my part. But my team did a great job. I left after the company was acquired and went out on my own and initially worked with a lot of corporates, mostly big brokers and insurance carriers. But in 2012-ish, I pivoted my consulting practice from fee-for-service to equity-for-service. And I did that specifically because I wanted to work with startups. And I knew they didn't have the money to pay my consulting fees, but they had equity. And, you know, I've been fortunate, and that is really, really good at saving money. And so we have money put away, and I don't need the day-to-day income. I'll just wind up paying it out in taxes. So this gives us an opportunity to have some upside potentially. And it also gives the technology companies some skin in the game. They're giving up something of value to them, so they value what I bring to the table. And now I'm on the board or advisory board for 9 startups. One successful exit, that was Tarmica, and gotten a couple of nice checks from that. And I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get some of my other startups over the finish line. They're mostly fairly small, early stage companies, all of them focused on the insurance agency, property and casualty agency technology space.
So let me ask you, as you choose which ones you want to align yourself with or consult with, is there any commonality among those technologies? Because the reality is we all have finite amount of time, energy, and you know, nobody wants to spend time in something that they think is not going to make an impact or not necessarily be successful. So from your perspective, what are the things that tie those together that made you choose those? Did you say 9 companies?
9. Yes. Well, obviously, the first thing is they have to be focused on the independent agent space, or at least the insurance distribution space. I have one startup that is more focused on MGAs and MGUs, but still distribution. Secondly, I don't work with competitors for obvious reasons. And thirdly, I need to be impressed with the founders team. Okay, I'm looking to work with people. If the fit is right for my energy and their energy, I trust that I'll be able to help them get their technology products focused in the appropriate way. I'm really a product person. I don't do a lot of finance. I don't have a great number of contacts in the VC space. And I don't particularly love doing business development, although I've been in the business a long time, so I know a lot of folks, and I'm not adverse to using my, connections to try to publicize what my startups are doing. But primarily, I'm focused on product market fit. As you know, Carey, and probably Lindsay as well, a lot of the folks who, quote, pivoted to the insurance space, they're technology folks. And they're really good at technology, but they don't necessarily know much about the insurance space. And so I can bring a depth of experience in working with independent insurance agents on solving their business problems and focus it and helping those startups really target their market.
So, Frank, I got to ask, because this is something that we've talked about on plenty of podcasts before, is that I think that there's a clear difference between technology in the insurance space that was built like by agents and then insurance products that were built without agents. Maybe the founder wasn't an agent, but I think it's always incredibly important to have like a board of agents who are giving feedback, even if the founder themselves was an agent, because no two agencies are the same. So is that something that you always help implement? Do you help manage those committees? How does that work in a really early stage product? At what point do people get involved like that?
The first thing that I try to do is to ensure that the startups are connected with the right agencies. You're right. Every agency is somewhat different, but they all share common problems. And for instance, when Aureus Analytics, completed their paid proof of concept with the Travelers for their customer experience platform, but then were unable over a period of a year and a half to get any traction with insurance carriers, even though the CEO had relocated himself and his family to West Hartford, Connecticut. He came to me and asked me if I could help him, pivot to the insurance agency space. And I immediately introduced him to, Carey, Chris Paradiso, my insurance agent and good friend. And, they didn't even have a user interface for agents because they used to use their customer experience analytics to push through carrier operational systems. Well, you can't do that with agency management system vendors. They don't do that until you've got a bigger client base than they do. Then they'll do it. But to get started, they had to create their own UI. And Chris and his team worked for 3 months gratis with this startup vendor, giving them the insight and understanding of the space that you mentioned, Lindsay, so that what they were creating would be accessible to independent agents. And 3 months after that, they had 40 agencies on their platform, and they've never looked back. So that's what I try to do. I try to make the connections for every one of the platforms that I take on as a mentor to get them connected with the right agencies. And there are always agencies who are a better fit for a particular technology, even if it's only from the perspective of their mindset. They haven't quite gotten to the stage where they recognize that the single most important way to do digital engagement with their customers is through this little thing that I have in my pocket, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't get the fact that that is the mechanism for digital engagement with your customers, then you're not going to be a really good fit for the insurance agent app, right? Right. If you don't recognize that the biggest challenge that every AI platform or any operational platform that integrates to agency systems has is the quality, or I should say lack of quality, in the data that those agency systems contain, then you're probably not going to, reach out to Roman Stepanenko at Record Linker to get his data cleansing and normalization platform, right? You're going to get integrated to a platform, and it's going to give you feedback on your customers or push data out to your customers. And you're going to recognize, your people are going to recognize that the insights are wrong or the data itself is wrong when the customer looks at it. Because you've made the mistake of not cleaning your house before you invited someone in to take pictures.
Right. Exactly.
So that's me. That's the focus that you need to bring when you're working with startups. And of course, there are also things, just operational things. When you've started your own small business and you run it, you don't even know, unless you reflect back on it, how much you learned. And a lot of times these startups, they're two tech guys or gals, and neither one of them is a business person. That's a problem. Okay. I mean, the perfect formula, in my opinion, is, a business person from the insurance space. This is the perfect formula, right? A technology person who has really good, broad capabilities, and the person in the middle who ties them together, right? The person who knows how to run a business can help the tech person understand what the business person is saying. So that triumvirate is sort of the really excellent, most likely to succeed formula. Now, I can't dictate that. My startups and I work together, and I discover what they are and who they are. Okay, I can try to bring people in, and I do, but that's a sensitive issue, especially with founders. So. Totally. So that's how I go about the process.
Yeah. So let's talk about technology in the industry. Let's do because here's the reality. Independent agents have a blessing and a curse by the fact that they provide choice. They work with a ton of different carriers that all operate differently. There's customers that want to engage in different ways. And if you're not able to create an experience that works for your customer and also works for the partners that you're in, you're stuck in this inefficient situation. So I agree with you. The problems and challenges of this industry are common, regardless of the agency that you're in. And in my opinion, the tech that actually either creates efficiency or remove some of that friction are the ones that actually are going to make a huge impact on the industry. That's my personal take. So tell me what you think are some predictions of technology that you see today in our industry that you think are going to make a huge, huge impact.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention AI. And
heck yeah.
Yeah. And AI is kind of a slippery, term. And all of my startups use AI in some manner, shape, or form, mostly in very targeted, very operational ways. Not the kinds of things that you hear about with ChatGPT and stuff like that. Not the deep fakes and all the rest of that. What they're doing is they're applying technologies that enable systems to make decisions that would normally have to be done by a human being. And we are making some headway. It is not going to progress as quickly as people say it's going to progress. And part of that is because we don't really fully understand what it is that our own brains do. And so it's very difficult to create a comparable intelligence in a machine if you don't really understand what your brain is doing. It's one of the reasons why self-driving vehicles have not caught on. It's because we don't really realize how much we do when we're behind the wheel of a car. sort of the ideal circumstance is a machine-human interface where the machine is complementing the skills and capabilities of the human.
Give me an example of one that you think is making headway that might actually hit the Main Street agency. Give me an example of a technology right today that isn't ChatGPT, but is actually doing what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, I mentioned Aureus Analytics before, and what they're doing is taking the data that resides in agency management systems, and if the agency is interested in paying for augmented data, they pull data off of the internet and they cleanse it and combine it with the data that's in the management system, and they then derive, insights from that data. And the insights are largely focused around retention, which should be job one for an agency.
100%. Yes.
100%. And around upsell and cross-sell, okay? Finding those holes in coverage or those opportunities for upsell and cross-sell that, an agency wouldn't necessarily notice. And they also do sentiment analysis. They have a trademark feature called Centimeter, which allows them to judge from the interactions what it is that the customer's experience has been, and they grade it on a 100-point scale, and they have little emojis for the quality of the experience. But it allows the agency to focus in when you're doing retention, for instance. You want to make sure that you get to those people that are unhappy fast. They're the ones you want to hit first, right? Because you're going to need to fix things. You're going to need to rectify things. Similarly, you're not going to want to try to upsell someone who's upset, right? So there's a time and a place for these technologies. Yeah. But that's a very targeted, very pragmatic, very effective way to apply AI. I have another startup that's using AI to do data conversions. They're a small agency management system vendor, and they recognize that, one of the biggest challenges for agents is how do they get all that data out of their system and into the new system? It's not something that their current vendor is going to be terribly supportive of. And so using AI and Accord data standards, this company was able to create, and over the night or over the weekend, depending on how big the agency is, conversion of data, from the one management system to another. That dramatically improves the potential that an agency would be able to learn and adapt to a new system relatively quickly. There's, AI built into Record Linker. Leo uses a lot of AI. That's another one of my startups. And they managed to pull a lot of data off of the internet as well. They're focused primarily on new business sales, on enabling producers to reach the right people with the skill sets that their agency has. They're interested in what your current book of business looks like, mostly because it predicts how well you'll function in various industry segments going forward. And I have a startup that does video analytics of drivers, both analytics looking out the windshield. It's a dual camera system, works on a phone, turns on both the cameras, and it looks out through the windshield, detecting threats. And it also looks at the driver and determines whether the driver is paying attention, okay? Whether they're distracted, drowsy, and it alerts the driver when there's a threat. There are two levels, alert and warning. And it's just tones or a voice. Okay, the voice is the warning, when it's a threat. But if you're the driver and you're looking left because you're going to turn and someone steps off the curb, the proverbial mom with the baby carriage steps off the curb on the right-hand side, you're not going to see them. You need to be notified. That's a perfect application for AI. And that's where I think we're going to see, that's where I think we're going to see a lot of change. I think we're going to see a lot of risk mitigating technology, what I call risk mitigating technologies, water sensors, Ring doorbells, the Nest thermostats, the kinds of things that people are installing in their homes. And it's an enormous opportunity for agents because agents are closest to the customer. If they school themselves or, hire someone who is capable in that area, they can build a very strong relationship, even stronger relationship with their customer by being their risk mitigating expert. And these things are ultimately going to find their way into our value chain, insurance value chain. And carriers are going to discover that it's a lot better to underwrite by looking through the windshield than looking in the rearview mirror. That's the way we do things and have done things for a long time. Agents need to be able to leverage the technologies that already exist that we're not deploying successfully. They need to be able to, do what we used to call straight through processing or once and done or immediate work completion, you name it. They need to have a way in order to compete with direct writers and with captive agents. They need to be as efficient as them, even though, as you said, Carey, they give their big advantage and disadvantage is choice, right? But there are ways to streamline that. And they need to work on their carriers and get them to buy into the concept that we need to solve the problem of how we give a bindable quote that can be turned into a policy without the agent doing multiple trips to and from the carrier's website. There are so many things. I mean, I'm still working on the same problems now that I worked on 48 years ago. The platforms are different, but the inefficiency in our technology space, in our insurance technology space, is so intransigent, so embedded that we tried creating applications so that agents wouldn't have to fill out a bunch of carrier-specific applications. We then said, okay, we're going to save you the time. You can go and put the data into the carrier system, but we'll send you a download so you don't have to do duplicate entry. Then we created real-time, integrations for rating and for underwriting and so forth, and billing inquiries and go down the list, claims inquiries. We've only implemented a fraction of those technologies.
Yeah.
That's the
challenge, right?
Yeah, we still only have a dozen or so lines of business that we do it for. We still only have the highest level business transactions. And it's because, we take our eye off the ball. It's one of the problems with the feast and famine cycle, where the hard market, soft market, and we're in the longest hard market in my 48 years right now. And, when a lot of money is flowing in, people take their eye off the ball. They don't say, I've got to continue to work on this, solve this problem. Or there's changes in the industry in terms of who's leading what organizations. And we really are doing the agents a disservice. We have some very, very old technology, including my beloved Sajida, that is not being dealt with. It's not being enhanced, and it's not being, sunset. We need
I think there's a lot of technology right now, Frank, that some of the technology that's being built with AI is going to, push through and move some other types of technology out. I think an example of this is a technology like Gaia is going to push raters out, right? Like using an AI solution is going to take existing solutions that we have that have maybe stalled out or aren't, don't work correctly. Like oftentimes with a rater, I hear, well, it displays me a rate, but then when I actually bridge over into the carrier, it's much higher, right? Like issues like that don't happen with Gaia because you're exactly in the carrier portal. So I think that there's opportunity for new and fresh technology to come and freshen up solutions that may be existing right now, or even push them to be better. Are there other examples of technology that you think will come and disrupt existing solutions? I hate using the word disrupt, but
yeah, I mean, mostly I'm an and sort of guy, not an or. And most Insurtechs have pivoted away from the word disrupt for that reason.
Yep.
Something as straightforward as a mobile app. Okay. the Insurance Agent app has been around for a dozen years, okay? Mobile technology is not new, okay? Nobody in their right mind would call it disruptive, okay? But, you know, for me, I use it, Chris has it, I use it every day. Well, not every day, but several times a month, okay? Because it's my own personal insurance, and I have a bunch of other companies that I've referred to Chris where I'm the treasurer, I'm on the board, and I'm sort of the go-to insurance guy. And so I'm continually looking things up, ordering certificates, and self-servicing without having to bother Chris's staff. I love them, but I like doing things myself. And I think there's an ever-increasing number or amount of the population that are interested and capable of servicing themselves if you give them the tools, okay? Yep. And I'm not talking about a web app.
Yeah, the reality is people like me don't want to do things between 9 and 5 when an agency is open. I actually want to take care of things when I have the time in order to do what I need to do. And that's true for everything. If you think about it, it's how we bank, it's how we exercise, it's how we shop, it's how we do all kinds of things. I don't need a store to be open. I just need Amazon to bring it to my door. Like it's how we grocery shop, it's how we do everything. So why in the world would we not think it's the way we're going to actually plan for our business or our home and protect ourselves? It's the craziest thing, Frank, that I think financial in general, banking, insurance, investments still are a little old school, thinking that you have to do brick and mortar. And the reality is our society has moved away from that. And I'm not just talking about Lindsay's generation. I'm talking about my generation and your generation, where people just want convenience. Like there's just no two ways around that. So I could not agree more. But what would you say to the agents? Because I can hear them in my ears that say, my customers don't engage with me that way. What would you say to those agents?
Well, recently, I think you know Matt and Kiki, but recently Matt heard that from one of his agents. And he said to him, I'll tell you what, I'll run a survey for you because I already have, you know, all of your customers, right? I have their email addresses. They were thinking about doing it, so they agreed to allow him to get access to data. He said, I'll create a survey for you and I'll send it out to your customers. 62% of his customers said they would prefer to use a mobile app. Okay. And this is an agent who said, my customers aren't interested in a mobile app. Well, I mean, and I'm sure you do this too, Carey. You know, you go in and people say, oh, my close ratio is 80%. And you say, really? So we're going to just give you a simple spreadsheet. And every contact that your people make, we're going to track it and we're going to find out who actually you closed. And guess what? The close ratio is closer to 33 if they're lucky. Right? So if you don't measure it, you don't know. And so these preconceived notions are defeatist on the part of agents. What have you got to lose? It's not like the thing is expensive. It's not. People are just threatened. They're threatened by new technology. They have to be able to get out of their way. And you know, one of the most important things to do is to identify people who come from the digital, you know, generation, the people who grew up with this. Put them on your staff and give them some space to you know, begin to explore social media and other mechanisms for connecting with the younger generation. And you will find that those people will make you successful. Now, you can't stop doing all the old stuff, okay? Because you've got a whole bunch of customers. And you can't always predict by age who's going to go which way, right? For whom it's really important that they get that handwritten card, okay? Or that they get the Dunkin' Donuts, you know, reward card for giving you a good review and so on. But you better be doing social media. You better be doing every type of communication that you possibly can. And the best way to do that is to bring people and bring them in. Chris is, you know, guru for all of this communication, started in his agency at 16, okay, while she was still going to high school. Wow. You know, she is now running all of the marketing for his firm, okay? So it's like, I think 6 or 8 years later. You know, you can build it and it's not expensive. 16-year-olds are not expensive. And you will be amazed what they know.
Yep.
Agreed. And they think differently than we do. So
Sure.
I often, obviously what I do is try to help agents make the right investments inside their agencies so they can increase the value and have as many options as possible. Because the reality is every agency owner that's listening to this podcast at some point will not be the owner. That's just a reality. So if someone says, well, I'm not selling now, or I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. The reality is all of us leave this earth. So you eventually will be making a decision about the future of your agency. Internal, external, doesn't matter. So
True.
For those that resist, or those that think technology, I don't need to do certain things, or that's not the way my customers act, what would you say to them? And what advice would you give to agents that want to do things the way they've always done it, Frank? Because you've been here for 40 some years. Like, tell me what advice you give to them.
Well, it is difficult. And I have discovered myself that telling people who are very, very financially successful, and most independent agents are,
Yes,
that they don't really know everything there is to know about how to run their agency is a challenge. What I would do is I would ask them to ask their customers. As I mentioned with the survey that returned 62% of people said they would like to have a mobile app, just don't presuppose that you know everything. And don't presuppose that I know everything, okay? But, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we will spend twice as much time listening. So reach out and ask your customers. They will tell you what they need. And you have to sometimes be able to read between the lines, okay? And you have to formulate the questions in such a way that you're not going to presuppose the answer, okay? There is an art to writing a survey. And, you can always slant the results by the way in which you phrase the questions. You have to be as neutral as possible. There are plenty of people out there you can find who will help you craft a good survey. And just pick some of the areas where you're hearing from technology people that their thing is the best, whatever since sliced bread. Good. Find out what your customers think. No agent that I know will ignore their customers.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, Frank, it's been amazing to have you on. Thank you for giving us some insight into things you're working on, things you come seeing, or things you're seeing come in the future, and a little bit of advice for our agencies. Want to wish you and your family a happy holidays for sure. And thank you so much for coming a little festive for us. That is super, super fun. And we look forward to having you on again. I'm sure we'll have you on again before the end of our podcast.
Okay. Well, don't make it number 200.
Exactly. We won't, for sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Frank.
Okay. Well, ho, ho, ho. Happy holidays, Carey. Happy holidays, Lindsay. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.